Tell me a little bit more about like where you're at right now with AI integration, with how it's serving the business side of things.
Yeah, we're embedding it in every part of our business right now, whether it be on the back end with the market and the dynamics of the market, with my team in the front end of, how do we acquire and retain customers in a way that is low touch and has a optimized acquisition cost.
Hello and welcome back to the Interior Public Podcast. I'm your host, Mary Diaz. Joining me today is Greg Kruchko. He is the Chief Revenue Officer at Phobio, a device trade-in and lifecycle software company. Greg, I'm so happy to have you here today. How are you? Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what your role is and what you're doing.
Yeah, great. Great to be here, Mary. Thanks for having me. Yeah, so Greg Kruchko, I live in Denver, and Phobio, we do, as Mary said, device trade-in, lifecycle management, recycling, e-waste handling. We do the whole nine, but mostly we focus on the software side of things of like, how do we make sure that when a device does get traded in, that people are getting the right value for it, that we have a good interface, that we can help advise consumers, enterprises, nonprofits. We work in a lot of different segments of, how they think about raising funds for the nonprofits or end-to-end lifecycle management and understanding of their devices and their values. And consumers, they're thinking about, how do I get my hands on a new iPhone or a new MacBook or what have you? So very much focused on the software and the technology side of things, but ultimately it is device trade-in as the back. Chief Revenue Officer. So we're a smaller company. So as smaller companies do, I often wear many hats. I feel like sometimes I'm a little bit of the chief strategy officer, sometimes I'm the chief marketing officer, but mostly I'm thinking about growth and revenue. And so that consists of a lot of things. Sometimes my job is to think about sales effectiveness of how do we keep our customer acquisition costs low? How do we put our voice in market in a more effective way? How do we track and report pipeline? But ultimately, I'm concerned about new customer acquisition and customer retention and doing that in a cost-effective way that is going to help us grow our revenue. Yeah.
How do you go about that within your network?
Yeah, so I'll do it by channel. Our enterprise channel, we think about our public platforms that are going to be the highest touch with those customers. And so, LinkedIn is obviously a good one. Our .com page is another good one. But then, Google Ads and other things like that are probably like the tip of the spear as far as like acquisition goes. And then, we also try to work with partners in the space and, partners in this life cycle management space, trade-in space. A lot of partners do a lot of different things where they do robotics or they do reverse logistics or they do, what have you. So how can we partner with folks where there's a synergy there for us to serve our collective clients better? And then there's also a part of this space where there's value-added resellers and managed service providers. And so those folks are buying and selling technology. That could be software, that could be hardware. So how do we partner with them? So we're thinking about it through ecosystems. We're thinking about it through direct. We're thinking about it through creating demand in the market to create inbound. And that's more of the enterprise side of things. On the customer side of things, or the consumer side of things, like if you wanted to trade in your iPhone, we do that. We do that with our own hosted platform, our own hosted marketplace, where consumers can do that directly with us if they want. And so the acquisition channel there's a little bit different. It's Instagram, it's TikTok, it's Facebook. And then we also do it for retailers. And so Costco is one of our biggest retail partners. And so, for them, what we do is we have the same software that we would run with an enterprise client or a telco where they're selling. We don't partner with Verizon, but using Verizon, for example, if you walk into a Verizon store, you're thinking about how do I upgrade into my new device? Costco, not dissimilar to that of like somebody's walking into Costco and they're thinking, how do I get ready for back to school? People, we were talking about this before the call, people need backpacks for the kids, they need notebooks for the kids. Like they might need a bunch of groceries for the kids, but also they have devices that have been, in this example for kids, like they've probably been going through some tough times with the kids dropping things and, getting food on things. And, so we can, at Costco, we can help by giving you a Costco gift card if you use the Costco channel to trade in your device. And then ultimately you get a Costco gift card for it. You can fund your back to school purchases or fund your child's new computer or what have you. So, in that channel, we usually use co-marketing with Costco. So some of our retail partners, we've got a bunch of telcos in Canada. We've got Motorola. We have several partners in that space. So co-marketing is usually the channel that we use, but there's other ways to drive demand in that channel as well.
What are the trends that you're seeing within this industry right now?
Yeah, I mean it's a bit different by channel, but broadly, tariffs are impacting the space. So Apple, for example, had a really good quarter. That's largely driven by the fact that there's tariff uncertainty. So people went out and bought a lot of Apple products. So, because of that, we're forecasting that within a year to 4, we're going to see a lot of volume coming back our way. That is a little bit more front loaded than we would normally anticipate. In the enterprise channel, not too dissimilar, but for planning schedules, planning horizons with tariff impacts, enterprises are thinking about okay, either how do I liquidate right now, or how do I plan for the next cycle of tech that I need to get in my hands in a way that potentially protects me from tariffs, or potentially gives me better capital to outlay in the future when I have those needs pop up. From a tech perspective, just like the curve of change in the tech space, OpenAI is partnering with device manufacturers now. And so like at some point in the future, there's going to be a device that you can have in your hands and at your home that's going to be, it's not going to be Android, it's not going to be Apple, it's going to be some new OS that is all generative AI driven. So how do we get our arms around like what these new devices are? We're not playing in this space right now, but there was a moment where the metaverse concept was having a big period. So like Oculus and the Ray-Ban glasses, those are things that, as this space evolves, are going to be something that are going to be, the Apple Vision Pro is like a $3,000 device. Like these things are going to have more similarities to your computers and your phones that are going to require some sort of refreshment at some point in the space. And then on the generative AI thing, everybody's talking about it at a minimum, like ideally using it. So we use it in our day-to-day business operations with marketing, with sales collateral, what have you. But also we can use it inside of our tech, where we're thinking about how do I, instead of having a consumer plug in the details about this phone, how do we do it in a way where they can hold up the front, the back, and we can scan it based off of large language models to make sure that we have precision in the way we price it, the precision in the way we route it. So we're thinking about how do we embed that in our technology right now to make it a better enterprise experience, to make it a better consumer experience. So the broader economic and technological landscape are dramatically impacting the way we think about things.
Tell me a little bit more about like where you're at right now with AI integration, with how it's serving the business side of things, and where you see it going in the next few months.
Yeah, I mean, from a product perspective, that's one of the big things we're doing. The other thing we're doing is when we think about demand in the market, that's all run in the back of the product with a demand engine that's sensing the market price, sensing willingness to pay, sensing things like that. So, we're using language models there to help us have better ideas of what the market will bear, types of volume forecasting, things like that run the back end of the product. More front of house, we're thinking about how do we use HubSpot? How do we use Canva? How do we use other tools that are going to help us make slick collateral? They're going to help us do low touch outreach, or like low touch from a sales team perspective. That's going to drive demand. That's going to create slick collateral, and it's going to do it in a way that I could do it in an hour, right? And I could create 100 outbound emails like that, and I can have slick collateral followed. I can have follow-up protocols that follow that. So we're embedding it in every part of our business right now, whether it be on the back end with the market and the dynamics of the market, actually in the product itself of like, routing you through the product in an intelligent way. And then with my team in the front end of, how do we acquire and retain customers in a way that is low touch and has a optimized acquisition cost.
What do you think has been what's the most frustrating or challenging thing that you're facing right now as a company?
I think it's an interesting space that we compete in. It's very fragmented. There's folks in the space that they run little shops in the corner of a street in like Manhattan, and like right. All they want to do is sell like refurbished phones. There's also folks that work with the big telco players like Verizon and Apple, sorry, not Apple, but AT&T. And like those players are different by geography too. So like your Latin players are not the same as your European players, which are not the same as your Asian players, but we're all very much interconnected. So we're thinking about differentiation. We're thinking about acquisition and having like a very compelling value proposition that I think we're in a great space where we can serve all these different channels in a way that creates value for every channel uniquely. But also I think we're doing a good job of differentiating. Elevating above the fray in such a fragmented space is always a challenge of SEO and things of that nature to like continue to elevate the brand in a way that generates interest in the brand, but also keeps it as the brand that people want to work with to help them solve some of these big problems or small problems. Like we can help both. I
imagine that there's like interesting conversations that can be had from a brand perspective about like just educating public and consumers and other enterprises on like this very specific issue that you guys deal with? And like, how much do you guys do that? Do you do like content like that?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So we do. So, for more of the enterprise space, we have a very regimented content strategy where on about a weekly basis, maybe it's every 10 days, but about a weekly basis, our leadership team publishes something that they're seeing in the market, something that's important to them. And so like with the article that you're referencing, like the fitness landscape's a passion of mine. I'm sitting beside a Peloton bike, in my garage. I have 5 different bikes, 5 different skis. And so I'm wearing a Garmin watch. And so these devices are very much similar to your phone or your laptop, where they're $1,000 and they have residual value, and they are becoming a bigger and bigger piece of everybody's life. More people are wearing Auras, more people are wearing Whoops, more people are wearing Garmins, more people are wearing Apple Watches. And they drive a lot of their behaviors on a day-to-day basis. And there's a really big untapped market there about how do we take these Garmin devices or what have yous and give them second lives and help the consumer reduce the cost of ownership for their next one. Yeah. So back to the content strategy, we have a very strict process around how we talk to the market and are bringing thought capital to the market on about a weekly basis to put our point of view out there.
Do you feel like that helps like drive your marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We've been pushing hard on this strategy for the past several months, and, engagement on LinkedIn's really jumped. And you could talk about any of the metrics on LinkedIn that we look at, but like those are all moving in the right direction. And because of that, we're also increasing our inbound and having different conversations and types of conversations that we want to have that aren't just about what's this device worth. It's more about putting ourselves in a place of like, we know the space better than other people, and we have strong points of view that can help a consumer or an enterprise or whoever you really differentiate and think about the future of their devices.
What would you say is the core message of that platform for you guys that you guys carry as a brand? Like,
yeah, I mean, it's honestly all of it. I think for me, in that particular channel, I think, given the fragmented market that I was talking about earlier, a lot of people compete on volume and price. And I don't want to compete on either of those things. I want to compete on value. I want to compete on differentiation. I want to compete on expertise. I want to compete on solution. And I think we're doing a great job of doing that by talking about the market, by talking about the dynamics, by talking about the economics. We're presenting ourselves as experts in the space that can not just think about one unit, 1,000 units at the best price, but as a solution that needs to be embedded into every part of your business lifecycle, where it's freeing up cash flow, it's helping you with capital investment, it's helping you think about your next technological wave that's going to impact your enterprise, and how do you prepare for that? And so I really like the way the conversations are going because of the strategy that we're pursuing, and I think it's been really valuable for us.
So what would you say, like, if you could, I like this question just because it's fun to imagine, like, to wave your wand and solve some major issue or problem in your business right now, or like the biggest obstacle that you guys have to getting to your next avenue of growth, what would you have it do?
Yeah, I mean, I think, most businesses of our size would probably have something similar to say, but we're small, we're scrappy, and we have a lot of people.
How many employees are you? Sorry.
We're about 40.
40.
Yeah. And so, everyone's doing a great job. And, sometimes what that means is we're all getting the product where it needs to be, or, pitching to a lot of new clients or existing clients. And, sometimes we miss the forest for the trees a little bit. And so, if I could wave the magic wand, it'd be more headcount or, it would be, processes and systems that exist within 12 hours that are, being built right now. Like, the chief product officer and I were talking earlier about, some of the things that we're doing around dashboarding and analytics for our clients, and how we're trying to make it, more intelligent for them. And I think, every time I have conversations with these folks, they're like, more insight. And so, we're constantly working on the evolution of that to make sure that they have all the data that they need to make really informed decisions that are going to help drive their business in that space. How do we partner effectively? Like with the Costco example, which is a retail client, but it's also ultimately B2B to C. But how do we think about expanding in those channels? Because if we can create in these channels, we're creating basket sizes that are about $50 larger than they would be on average. We're creating greater footfall. We're creating better e-commerce engagement. We're creating all these things with our retail partners. And so like, how do we continue to create that value for them and make sure the consumer understands what that value is for them as well? Of if you walk in and trade in your phone, you're going to get a $200 Costco gift card. And that's really big for the holidays. It's really big for back to school season. So you continue to bring those things to market. And we're pretty new in the nonprofit space where we want to help nonprofits raise funds in a different way. Our donors. It's a unique time in the space, especially in the public media space where funding is drying up. And so we're talking to a lot of nonprofits, whether it be public media or whether it be the likes of a St. Jude's or one of those organizations. And it's something where the conversations we've had in that space, a lot of folks rely, or the nonprofits rely on more of an older donor base. And those older donors, maybe they don't use devices the way that you or I use devices. And so going back to the well with their most giving donors, this opens up brand new avenues for them and brand new things to talk about in their marketing and with their brands. And we've seen a lot of traction in the space where it's going to open up avenues for them where maybe they can reach a Gen Z donor, or maybe they can reach a millennial donor that like has never really thought about donating to one of these causes because there's too much friction anymore.
Do you feel like you've like been able to resonate within the younger markets, within the Gen Z market?
I mean, I would say anecdotally, we've seen some pretty good engagement. Our Instagram and TikTok channels have a decent following, but it's not one of those things where we have a lot of virality. It's not
Right.
it's not like a fun, sexy space to be like, hey, trade in your phone. Some of the campaigns we've been running with some of our nonprofit partners, we've seen some pretty quick uptake where our product, you can launch it in 3 days, but depending on the levels of integration that you want. But for our nonprofit partners, you can launch it in 3 days. And then some of our partners have just, they're in planning cycles given their funding strategies. And without promoting the campaigns, we're seeing 50 or more devices a month just by having it exist on their donation website. And so now that more folks are actually promoting it, we're really seeing an uptick in volume. And so, we don't have all of the demographic data to support the Gen Z hypothesis, but like based off of some early insights, it does seem like we're helping nonprofits and retailers reach younger demographics that have been a bit inaccessible to them in the past.
Greg, this has been such a great conversation. Thank you so much. Would you tell us a little bit, where can we find you? Give us your website and anywhere else that we can follow your content.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to engage with the brand, phobio.com, phobio.com. And you can find our other platforms there, our Instagrams, our LinkedIns, things of that nature. If you want to engage with me individually, follow the standard LinkedIn protocol, .com/ and then first name, last name, Greg Kruchko. And I would love to engage with folks there as well.
Well, thank you so much, Greg. This has been a wonderful conversation.